My name is Michelle Stallibrass and I am the lead administrator for PSFU and beetroot cancer across the MSc at Mid and South Essex Hospitals. So I was asked to come on board with the beetroot project quite early on in terms of its actual setup and build, and I was instrumental in setting up the clinical governance guidelines and looking at how the system was going to work best for the urology department as a whole. So we were looking at setting it up to deliver good outcomes for patients if they were experiencing problems getting appointments in regular clinics. As I said, we've had a lot of problems with overbooking and staff having to work extra time, so it's not unusual for some of our staff to work overtime, to work at weekends and to work on bank holidays to fit patients in. So the beetroot system was really instrumental in taking some of those patients away and lessening that workload. So we were looking across the board at different clinic codes with different nurses and different consultants across the urology department, specifically just at Southend at first, to look to see what criteria we could set in place to take away some of those patients from those overburdened clinics and move them onto a patient stratified system such as beetroot cancer. And that was what we were doing in the early days. So with regards to monitoring of patients, we've set up the system so that we can look at specific blood tests, and for urology patients that's something called a PSA, and a patient will go along and have a PSA done at set intervals along their pathway depending on how far away from treatment they are. The blood results will come back into the beetroot system and we can tailor-make alerts that are, like I say, tailor-made to each patient, and we can set the parameters as to when those alerts are going to come onto the system. Once the patient has alerted, then the administrator is fully trained to be able to know what to do with that particular alert. They can review it and they can outcome it. We have specific lines of communication in place so that the patient can be fast-tracked back into the urology system and see a clinical nurse specialist should they need to. But we also have the ability for patients to just be left alone and live life beyond their treatment for prostate cancer, and they can call us if they need to, rather than us calling them on a regular basis. In terms of the actual use of the system, then the administrators are the principal users, and I'm just talking specifically about urology there. We are lucky enough to have administrators in our department. I know that there are some departments that aren't quite so lucky with that, but the administrators are fully trained to be able to recognise what they should do with the particular alerts. Where the clinicians come in is setting those parameters in the first place. So it's really important to have that hierarchy of staff where you've got somebody who's setting those parameters, and that's a clinical decision, and then you have an administrator carrying out those decisions and monitoring the alerts as they come in. And a lot of the tumour sites that we're getting on board are actually using the PROMs more and more. So in terms of the communication with the patient, we find that it's a really good and effective tool, and lots of people these days use mobile phones to communicate, and so the ability to be able to send a questionnaire really quickly and really easily to a patient's mobile phone, they can fill it out quickly and easily, send it back to us, and that can be actioned almost immediately in real time. But it also gives that patient that link. We were really keen to make sure that our patients didn't feel like as soon as they moved over onto remote follow-up that they were kind of cast out into the community and they didn't have that link back to us. And the HNAs and the questionnaires have reassured patients that there is that link, and if they do have any issues or worries or concerns, they can contact us really, really easily. So the active surveillance arm of the development of beetroot is really in the early stages, and what we're looking to achieve is really along the same lines. We have a huge number of patients who are currently in our clinics who have some degree of prostate cancer, but it doesn't actually need any treatment right now, so they're kind of on a watch and wait policy. But as you can imagine, the more patients we see at disciplinary team meetings and in clinic settings and who are referred from GP practices, that cohort of patients just becomes larger and larger and larger, and it gets more and more difficult to monitor and maintain any progression from those patients. So looking at that particular cohort of patients, we can move them onto the beetroot system and put some monitoring processes in place so that we can keep track of where they are within their pathway. Beetroot has really expanded since I first came on board back sort of 5 or 6 years ago. So we're now looking at introducing lots of different tumour sites to use in the beetroot cancer platform, and that's been really interesting, and it's really opened up to me how the system can be used really flexibly to carry out lots and lots of different requirements for each specific tumour site. And it's only been quite recently that we've had all of this different interest from different tumour sites that we can really see how flexible the system can become, and it can become really tailor-made to the cohort of patients that that tumour site needs to track.